This is Women Road Warriors with Shelley Johnson and Kathy Tuccaro. If you drive long haul, short haul, or heavy haul, they're here to empower and inspire women in the trades on tncradio.live. So gear down, sit back, and enjoy.
Welcome to Women Road Warriors with Shelley Johnson and Kathy Tuccaro. We're a show that works to inspire and empower women in trucking, in the trades, and every profession. We tackle all kinds of topics and work to encourage women to be their very best with informative guests and women who've been champions. I'm Shelley, and
I'm Kathy.
No topic is not allowed on our rig. We tackle the tough topics along with the not so tough topics. And we like to feature experts, celebrities, and women who can assist other women in being the best they can be. Imagine going from being a hairstylist for 25 years to driving some of the world's biggest trucks at a coal mine in Canada and having your daughter join you. Claire and Caitlin Poirier are a mother-daughter team who work for Teck Coal. Caitlin was also a hairdresser before she began driving. Claire and her daughter were hired at the same time, and they work on the same crew. We wanted to learn more about how a mother and daughter decided to get into heavy haul after being a hairstylist, so we invited them on the show. Welcome, Claire and Caitlin. Thank you for being with us.
Welcome.
Thank you for having us.
You have an incredible story. How about you tell us how all of this began? I mean, that's really quite a switch from being a hairdresser to driving big, huge trucks.
Yeah, it was, it took a lot of thought, weighing the pros and the cons. We'd raised our family, our kids were grown and had moved out of the house, and our daughter had moved to Calgary. Our son was doing post-secondary school, and my husband worked away, and we live in an expensive part of Canada, and Fernie's, the real estate and just the cost of living is always increasing. And I was like, I just think I should figure out a way to make more money and work a little less, have more days off when my husband was home. And with the 4-and-4 schedule, a lot of women had been going to tech and, operating all sorts of heavy equipment. And one of my girlfriends had started at one of the other mine sites, and she was also a hairdresser actually in Cranbrook. And then she was just like, just go ahead, just apply and do it. She goes, you'll love it. If you like to drive, she goes, which you do, she goes, I can't see why you wouldn't love it. So she's like, put your big girl panties on and just do it. So I was like, yeah, you're right, I should. So I did. And I applied, and I was probably about 3 months, I would say 3-4 months. I got my interview right away. And I started immediately, and it was definitely nerve-wracking. Just making the swap, going to an industry that, my dad was a coal miner and my husband was a coal miner before he went up to the oil industry. But, I hadn't been to a mine since I was a teenager. So it was all kind of going to be new. But they have a great training program, and they were just
the
very
fact
welcoming.
that you applied shows a lot about your character, because a lot of women in other job related, other work areas would not even apply because they'd say, oh, I can't do that. And age is a big, how old were you when you applied? Like, I was 42 when I went into trucking. How old were you?
I was turning 47.
See, there you go, right? Most people wouldn't do that. So give yourself a pat on the back that you did.
Yeah, it was.
That takes.
And I think too, I wanted to prove to my kids, it doesn't matter how old you are or whatever you've done. You should never be really afraid to try something new.
Right.
Like it's hard to take that leap, but if you just kind of make your choices, and we wrote a list. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to do this. Like, I can't see why I can't do it. I'm trainable. I know I'm trainable.
Well, yeah. I went to Women Building Futures back in 2012, and I had, I had lost my nursing career, and I was like, homeless and kind of was in recovery, and I had no idea what I wanted to be when I grew up, 42. But when I got into that program, this was in Edmonton, I was shocked to find out the 16 women that got chosen for the Imperial Oil program, the pilot project, most of them were over 44, 45.
Right.
Right. And they were all doing a midlife career change. One had been in the Army for 25 years. One was a staff sergeant in the Edmonton Police Services for 25 years. One was a Red Seal chef. One was a postal office worker. Like, it just didn't matter. And it's
No.
almost as if that you hit a point and you're like, you know what? Why not? Why can't I
Yeah.
change? Who says that you have to have the same career forever? Right?
Yeah.
Who said that?
I heard
Right?
once that you have like an average of 7 careers in your lifetime.
I believe that.
Yeah.
Yeah, like kind of close to, some people stick
And
with
I
something
think we
for
should
5,
add
6 years and then,
motherhood is a career, is it
That
not?
it is.
Yeah.
That's a lifetime career.
isn't
Absolutely.
it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and it was great. And then I worked there for a year, and our daughter was in Calgary and was looking to come back to the valley. And again, with it being expensive and wanting to purchase a home, the coal mines, it's a decent living for here. Like, so it's hard to kind of make that kind of money. And she knew that I was enjoying working there and doing what I was doing. So she applied, and then, she got hired. It's like,
That's
crazy.
terrific.
Yeah, it's great though.
Caitlin, tell us how you felt when you decided to apply,
Yeah.
because everybody's different, right? And there's the age difference. And were you wondering, well, what if? Tell us.
Yeah, I feel like it was definitely probably easier for me because when I went up there, I already kind of knew what I was getting myself in because I had the inside scoop from my mom. So it was like a little easier for me to make the decision because you're not walking in where you don't know anyone, and even though you just know one person, it's still more comforting than walking into a whole new industry, a whole new place. And it's a whole different lifestyle up there.
Isn't it?
When you get to
oh my god,
do your hair and makeup to go to be a hairdresser, and then you go up there and you're filthy dirty, covered in coal dust. You're in coveralls and everyone has the same outfit on. You would never catch me matching outfits with someone before.
Yeah, we all look like
Fair.
Smurfs.
Yeah, exactly. So it was definitely easier for me, but it's still an intimidating process because I'm a lot younger. So it's to go up there in my early 20s, and you do feel like when you open up those doors that they can kind of never be shut again. So you feel like it's your one shot to get into the industry. And if you mess it up, or if you're not ready, or if the timing's not right, you don't want to screw it up. So it is a big decision.
What I've noticed from when I started up there, there was 12 of us. The Imperial had paid for 16 women to take this 12-week heavy equipment course, and they only hired 11. And
Wow.
It's not meant for everybody, because
No.
even a couple of the girls that got hired, once we got on to site, and number one, you'll take a look at that 797, you're like, holy crap. I'd never seen a haul truck before. I had no idea they even existed. I felt like I was on a different planet, right? I'm like, what? But there's two other women that, even though, because you have a 3-month training program, they couldn't quite get it, because it's a different thinking process. It's a different environment, and not everybody can back those suckers up.
No,
That's true.
Right?
When I got hired, there was 8 of us, not all women, but there was 4 of us women, and 4 women, and there's only actually out of all 8, and I remember them telling us in one of the training interview type things where you meet everybody and kind of your orientation, and they're saying only half will make it through, or can will be able to survive and do this as a career. And I remember going home and telling Dave, I was just like, I bet you they got bets on the hairdresser. There's no way I'm gonna give up. And
you know what? Yeah,
I was like, they better not have bets on the hairdresser that she can't make it. I'm like, because I'm gonna make it.
Yeah,
And
Good
sure
for
enough,
you.
we had one lady that she actually already did work. she drove like smaller haul trucks for a contractor and stuff like that. But yeah, just the bigger trucks and backing up to the shovel, or it just wasn't her jive. And
No.
she only made it a month,
Yeah.
and she quit. And we've had some people that have also like got one day on the truck. I remember the first day I got on the truck, just even they take you, you go with somebody else just as a ride along in the passenger
Yeah.
seat. And
Yeah.
my stomach, like when they,
I
make
know,
the turn,
right?
it feels like when you're
You're
loaded,
like,
you're
"Oh,
almost gonna
God."
tip over. And it was like,
Oh,
oh my God, what is this?
Oh, I know. Holy smokes.
so you
Yeah.
And
do
now
have a
I love
feeling
it.
like, what did I get myself into?
Well,
Well,
you know it's intense too when they ask you in the interview if you're afraid of heights, and I'm like, I'm just
You're
applying to
like,
drive,
huh?
and I like
What do you mean?
that's an important question to ask if you're
Yeah.
afraid of heights, because you are high up. Like they're massive equipment, but it's awesome.
For
yeah.
the
Isn't it
listeners who aren't
though?
familiar, how high up are you?
Well,
Well,
just to put it into perspective, like our tires are 12 feet tall.
That's
So
tall.
yeah, and
a
then the
6-foot man
797s
only
are
comes
14.
halfway up your tire, and then I think
Yeah.
it's as high as like a 2-story building. So it's like sitting in on the second level of apartment is where your driver's seat is, and then your truck's even taller than that because
Yeah.
you're not sitting on the very top. So it's
So that'd be
massive equipment.
that'd be kind of like me riding on top of my house. It's a 2-story house.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You're on the roof.
All right. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. No.
Yeah, you're pretty high up. And then, I mean, when you look around, we're small compared to some of the equipment, like the shovels, like we have female shovel operators up there, grader operators, dozer
How many people? How
operators.
many people in your mind?
On our crew, I
There's
think
70 of us.
Yeah, close to 70 per crew.
And there's
Okay.
4
4
different
different
crews.
crews.
So we're a
Okay.
smaller mine. Like we are out of the 4 the smallest.
Okay, so how
Okay.
many women on your crew?
We have quite a
Ooh,
few.
We do have a large amount. We have another mother-daughter. Her daughter just actually started.
I think we inspired
Nice.
them. Yeah.
They
Like
That's
just
great.
started, and then we have a mother-son, a father-son. We have a couple,
uncles and
yeah.
lots of family members on our crew, that's for sure, which is pretty cool
I-
to see.
I tried to get my daughter and telling her all the benefits and everything, and she wants nothing to do with it, which is
No.
fine.
I feel
mean,
like it's
we each have
definitely
our
something
own
you
thing,
have to
right?
want to do. Yeah.
Yeah,
Like you
yeah.
gotta want to do it or else it's not enjoyable. Like
No, because
And I
really,
remember telling Caitlin, I felt like she could really do it and she would be good. It's overwhelming at first, but I'm like, you're not intimidated to drive. Like we've always lived like 5 to 10 kilometers out of town, and our kids always had to drive the highway, right? From new
Mhm.
drivers, like drive winter conditions. And and I think that's always made a difference. We did lots of traveling when they were younger, and it was like you just drive according to the conditions, you slow down and be safe, but you should never be afraid or be held back by anything.
Mhm.
It's like just be cautious, take your time, and
Yep,
and
yep.
so I'm like, I feel like you could drive a haul truck. I'm like, you're a great driver.
Mhm.
And kudos
And
to you, Caitlin, for doing it, for
That's
trying
right.
it.
yeah, it was a big jump, but it's definitely you gotta weigh your pros and cons, and it's if you can handle, like I remember comparing it to when I moved to Calgary. I was a new driver, I just turned 18. I drove a stick shift car in a city that was like, so I grew up in a town of 5,000 people, and then I moved to a city that has 2 million. So you're like trying not to stall your car, trying to figure out what lane you have to be in, what lights, like that's what I remember comparing it to when I first went up there. I'm like, you're learning the rules of the road, you're learning the equipment that you're driving, how to back in properly, what the code words are on the radio, and like it's a very overwhelming position to be in, but I think it's great.
yeah. And the radio itself is overwhelming.
Yeah.
I couldn't understand anything, and when I first started,
Me
too.
either. I'm like,
Yeah.
what?
What goes on the radio?
It's just hearing people's voices too. Like someone will be like, "Hey, 65 truck, like I need you over here." And you're like, "Who are you and where do you want me?" And then
And
you learn
yeah.
people's voices and who's running the equipment, and then it's just like talking,
Mhm.
you know, everyone based on their voice. Like you don't even need to see their face. And then
Yeah.
Sure.
understanding their voices. Like we work with some
Or
men who are like,
accents. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Where I'm like, pardon? And you only say it so many times before you're just like, you
Oh
just
my
don't
God.
answer back because you can't
I know.
understand.
We have a guy from England. Nobody can understand him when on the radio. When you have to ask him 4 or 5 times, I
And
really hate
talk
to
so
say this,
fast.
sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, so true.
Oh my
No, but
gosh.
it's a great industry, and I think it's
It's definitely not for everyone though. And not just saying just for women. Like there's men that come up there that are like, absolutely not. This is not for me.
Sure.
It's
Yeah.
yeah.
Stay tuned for more of Women Road Warriors coming up.
Industry movement Trucking Moves America Forward is telling the story of the industry. Our safety champions, the women of trucking, independent contractors, the next generation of truckers, and more. Help us promote the best of our industry. Share your story and what you love about trucking. Share images of a moment you're proud of. And join us on social media. Learn more at truckingmovesamerica.com.
Welcome back to Women Road Warriors with Shelley Johnson and Kathy Tuccaro.
What would you say are the characteristics you need to have to take on this type of job?
I feel like the biggest thing is just like wanting to learn. I feel like a lot of it is like people come up there and they're like, I'm a good driver and I know what I'm doing. But if you're like open minded and willing to learn,
Mhm.
it's all in the way you take it. Like it's corrective criticism. And, you know, when you work with some older men who have been in the industry for 30 years, it can definitely be intimidating when they call you out and, you know, but it's coming from a good place. So you have to not be so sensitive, I find, when
yeah, that's
it
what I
comes to
always
taking like corrective criticism, because I want it to be good. So for
Right.
me, it's like, I want you to tell me and not be shy to tell me because I'm a girl. So it's like, just speak up and tell me and I'll fix it. So I feel like the biggest thing is just like being open to corrective criticism. And as long as you can do that, like I think you can do any job.
So what do you
Isn't
say
that the
to
truth?
what do you say to women who say, "Well, gosh, this is a man's job. Women couldn't be good at this"? Because I'm sure you've heard this.
You know what? We're way better listeners. So I think that's not true at
There
all.
you go.
So it comes down to just like, it is intimidating. So if you can put the scared scenario aside and just like take the plunge, I think there's nothing that they do that we can't. So
Yeah, and I think as long
Absolutely.
as you've got the drive, like, you know, I think if you want to listen, like Caitlin was saying, the corrective criticism, you know, I would ask our shovel operators when we were be on the bus, like, how was my angle? Like, don't be afraid to tell me, like, if I'm not coming in right, or, you know, if I'm coming in too close, like, I'm not sensitive where it's going to hurt my feelings, because I like, no matter what I do in life, I like to do it well. I like to do it very well. I like to be the best, not necessarily the best on the team, but the best that I can be as an individual. I put a full effort into everything I'm doing and I want to learn it.
Mhm.
So I think if you have that type of attitude that you're determined to learn and you want, you know, you want to look around, and I like to I guess like observe also the other equipment. Like we're on our breaks, I like to watch the dozer operators and look at what they're doing and why I think they're doing it, you know, just for the certain, I don't know, it's just kind of interesting to me. It's always just like, huh,
It's
because
all
maybe
because
one day I'll want to do something else up there. Like we get job postings all the time. Do I maybe want to do a grader operator? I really like the idea of being like being on the light duty loader, or like the rubber tire, you know,
like
there's
for the listeners out there, the reason my trainer at work is Claire's husband and Caitlin's dad,
Oh, how
Mr.
very
Dave
cool
Brady
is that,
himself.
Kathy?
so,
Yeah.
so that man has he's trained me on the 24M grader, right, the biggest grader, and now I'm currently training on the dozer, the D11. And you have to, okay, number one, Claire, what did he tell me the other day? He said, if my wife ever says that I'm not a patient man, I want her to talk to you. And I warned him. I said, Dave, I'm going to be your biggest challenge of your training career. I'm telling you that right now, because everybody learns different. And the graders,
Yes.
there's a lot going on. And right now the dozer, there's a lot going on. And the poor guy sometimes says, okay, I'll be back.
You know, it's
go.
funny, Kathy.
I got to step away.
Yeah, he was just explaining that too. And he's like, it's everybody. He goes, it's just finding a way that sometimes people don't understand the way that you're explaining it, and they can understand it the way someone else explains it. And then he was telling me about, you being on the grader, and then he's like, or on the dozer. And then he's like, you brought up a scenario to you, like, oh, it's like baking. You start in the middle and you work your way out. He goes, and
that's what I said. I said, it's like rolling out dough for a pie, right?
Yeah.
How funny.
And he's like, okay, yeah. He said,
yeah,
what did he say? I'm a baker. I can make bread and cinnamon buns. I'm like, what?
Yeah, exactly.
A big guy like you making cinnamon buns? I said,
he does. Yeah.
And it is true. Yeah. We all do learn differently. And I had to tell him, I said, Dave, you've been doing this for how many decades? I said, it's my first week on the dozer, because he's very perfectionist, I guess you could say. He wants everything nice and smooth. I said, I've been on it for a week, 2 days. Like, just give me like, take a step back. Remember when you started. But he is the most patient man I know, because sometimes I have to ask him at least 20 times. What was that again? Like,
well, he's just patient with you. I think that's why we're quick learners, us, because we're like, he'll only tell us a couple times, and then he's like, I've already told you. But it's funny how we can be different with our job. But that's another bonus, I think, with us, is that, like, when we were learning, because we didn't even know the mining industry at all, so it was like easy for us to go home and I'd be like, the dozer operator, like, he kept backing me up, and I felt like I was, and he's like, it's because this. He would explain from the dozer operator's perspective, or when I'm backing into the shovel, I'd be like, I don't know why this is happening. So then he's like, well, it's happening because of this. So it's definitely, we have an insight that most people don't have to go home and ask our dad, who runs all the equipment, like, well, my dad. And so
that's huge.
Yeah, it's definitely a pro to help us in the long run, because when you don't run the other equipment, you also don't understand what they want from you.
Right.
You're like, why do you want me to dump short this time and not next time? Or when they do stop you short, you feel like you're dirty dumping them, and they're like, nope, that's where I want you. And you're like, well, why? I was taught it has to go over, or whatever. Or it's like, so there's a lot of things that
I don't know about your mind, but we get stuck a lot. So often, if you get stuck on the dump, you're like, I was just filling a hole for you.
Yeah, exactly.
I just fixed that for you. You owe me a thank you, buddy.
Yeah, our roads are definitely a lot better from what I hear from Dave. He's like, you guys, it's like more like a sponge. He's like, the road is always kind of heaving, and he says it's
wicked.
I bet. So
brutal.
When you have it raining or snowing, that's got to be a challenge, isn't it?
Very much so.
Very much.
Yeah. And the fog, like sometimes it's like all of a sudden that fog rolls in, like even our last night shift. And even for me, I also, I was running the drill water truck.
I run the water truck too. Yay.
Yeah. So we blast all our rock and coal before the shovels can dig it. So the drills have to have water to keep the dust down for the environment and all sorts. And it was foggy and the haul was down, so the haul trucks were down. I had trucked earlier in the shift, and then they pulled me off to run the drill water truck, and I got like completely spun around. I mean, I wasn't as worried because I knew all the haul trucks were parked, but it was like all of a sudden it's like you don't even know where you are. You're following a berm, and then you spin around and you think you have an idea of where you're going.
Oh, that's such an awful feeling.
It's probably the worst weather up there, because when it rains, you deal with the roads, you call your graders, you slow down, you just drive according. But when you can't see, it's scary. And especially when you're in the electric trucks, you're loaded and going downhill, and you can't just stop.
Have you slid down the ramp yet? I have a few times. Let me
Oh,
tell you,
yes.
it's like, oh
Yes.
my God.
Flip
Right?
down backwards once.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, oh my
it's
goodness.
terrifying.
And I
One time
remember
there's
holding on to the steering wheel and like rocking back and forward, yelling at like at the truck, no,
yeah,
no, no, no.
yeah.
Backwards.
And it
But it
happens
was
so
like,
fast,
it
right?
Mm.
does.
In the blink
But
of
then
an
it was like,
eye.
yeah, you just get on the radio and communicate so everybody knows to stop. That's the number one thing when you're going through a situation, rather sliding down a ramp or something like that. You know, it's like you immediately need to get on the radio and inform the whole crew of where you are,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, like for the hall to stop, like you're sliding down a ramp sideways or you're spinning backwards, or because it does happen for sure.
Now, can they
Often.
tell where you are if it's foggy? Do they have like GPS on each vehicle so they have an idea of where you are if you're in trouble?
Yeah, they do actually.
Mm.
We
Yeah.
have it's called a Wanko system. So
Mhm.
it's like a touch screen in our truck that has like a GPS, but
Okay.
sometimes the fog will interfere with it.
Oh dear. Wow, I didn't know
So
fog could do that. That's interesting.
yeah, so it can sometimes,
The
or
weather
the weather plays a huge part.
on the towers, I think, or
Yeah, because we have little Wanko trailers that we pull around, and that's what gives us our connection. So sometimes they can be in a bad spot,
Uh-huh.
because the mine's always moving, right? We're always digging farther and farther away. So um, it definitely can change. But
yeah,
for the most part, yeah, they have like a tracking and they can see everywhere that you are. But
Okay.
there's the odd glitch in the system.
yeah, there is. And I mean, you have your everything's timed, right? Like you have your fixed times, which is like when you're queuing at your loading unit, you know, you're expected to get into your shovel, you know, within a certain amount of time, and you're expected to be able to back up to your dozer and dump your load in a certain amount of time because I mean, it is production. So, you know, at first you get familiar with just being a good driver, and then as your confidence builds, you know, and being familiar with just your routine, you become faster and more efficient.
Have you ever wondered, second guessed your decision on working in the mine? Like, you know how sometimes that little committee in our head, tries to
That
talk us down and say, "Oh, well, what were you thinking, woman?" Right?
no, I did
No.
not. I mean, I miss my clients, and I also worked for my best friend. I worked at the same salon for those whole entire years. So, I mean, you build relationships. I had clients throughout my whole entire career. So it was hard to let that part of it go, you know, where you kind of
Yeah.
miss them. Um, but the change of the career and even going into night shifts, which I'd never worked a night shift till I
Oh,
went there. And I was
they're
like,
brutal.
oh, at first, I don't know how, Kathy, you guys do 14 of them. I don't
It's
even know.
brutal. Like
Yeah, I can't
I mean, some
imagine.
people work better on nights. I don't. The only reason I like night shift is because I have a lot going on in my life outside of work. And
Yeah,
so it gives me time to make the phone calls to, do what I need to do. Whereas on day shift, by the time we get back to camp, it's like 7:30. And I'm like, well, you can't call, right? But
right.
no, I find it very, very difficult. And I think the older
Yeah.
I get, the harder it is. And it's like, oh my God.
Well, and I found the lights like were so bright. Everything is so dark. And then your equipment has these, you know, backing up to the shovel. I'd be like, can they aim those lights in a different direction? Like, I feel like they're
Yeah.
like, it just took a little bit
Yeah.
of time. And the reflection, you know, like when you would come off a dump, it would be like, is that a
Yeah.
haul truck? Like, but it would be the lights from something from on the other side. So that took a little bit of like getting used to. I
Mhm.
remember feeling very exhausted the first few months of just
Yeah.
doing night shifts. Like when I got home, it was like, holy,
Do you
like
encourage any of your past clients or your friends at all to try it, to give it a shot, to say, hey, don't
I
shut this out as an
have,
option?
yeah, like anybody that, you know, any of my friends or clients that are like, oh, they need a change or whichever, it's like you should apply at tech. You know,
Yeah, I do the
they've been
same. You
great
gotta
to me.
try it.
Yeah.
What I
And it's
say is
like,
it's man's
as
best
long
kept
as you
secret.
like to drive, if you don't enjoy driving and you find driving a struggle, I think you would
Yeah.
find 12 hours of driving a haul truck back and forth, a little bit chaotic and not something so enjoyable where, now it's like I can listen to the radio, I can crank my tunes, and I can drive the truck, and it's just like back and forth. And I am a little bit competitive, so I like to make sure that I'm doing it as efficiently as I can. And it's kind of funny. Like we flick the lights at each other and we make faces as we drive by each other in our equipment and lay on our horns. Like we make, make it a little bit fun as well.
It's important to do that sort of stuff because it keeps everyone awake also.
Oh,
Like
sure.
poking a little fun is
Like anything
always
else.
good.
It
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
And they're
'Cause
your
it-
work family.
We hang out with them more than our friends, by the time you
Yeah.
get home and dedicate a day off to hanging out with your friends and stuff, but you spend 4 days in a row, 12-hour shifts with these people, so you
Sure.
get to know them fast. And
And a 40-minute bus ride from our
Yeah.
house to get there.
yeah, we
that's
get transportation from town for our mine site, so it's nice. Like it's a good social. It can be as social or antisocial as you want it, which is kind of nice. Like on your days when you go to be a hairdresser and you're feeling quiet and like don't want to chat, it's like too bad you have to. Where it's nice,
Right.
you can just be on the radio less and talk less at your job
Sure.
at the mine. But the days that you are social and you can poke as much fun and chat with everyone as much as you want. So it's a good balance.
Sure. That's what I was going to ask. What is it like as a mother-daughter relationship working in seeing each other every single day? That doesn't happen a lot. How does that work?
We're lucky because
yeah.
we get along really
We've
well.
always been close. So we've always done lots of things together with both of our kids, always on days off. Even as they grew up, if Dave was home and it was a weekend off, they'd be like, oh, what are we doing? Like, Dad's off. What's the plan this set? Are we ice fishing? Are we doing this? So, we've our family's always been number one, and we've always done, I guess, a lot of good quality time together and working together. It's like I always, you give your kids your information as they get older, and then it's up to them to choose what they do with it. Like I don't want to
There's a lot of-
micromanage.
No.
No,
There's a lot of
it's like-
couples at our site. Like I've been there for 10 years, and there's a lot of couples working on the same crew, sharing the same room. And I'm thinking, I personally couldn't do it. I need space. So, but it's really good that you guys, mother-daughter, if anything, sometimes they were saying it brings you closer, right? Because you can share the same experience and you can talk about
and it is nice.
It is.
We have something now like more in common with my dad, like where before he'd always come home and talk about mining and we're like, we don't even know what you're talking about. Like, I'm like, what do you do up at the mine? And he's like, I run shovel. And I'm like, I don't even know what that is.
Yeah.
No concept of how big these machines really are.
You're like,
Sure.
so now it's like it's actually like a very family bonding thing when we come back and all talk about.
That is so cool. You've got something that would bring the family together, and you've got something that you can talk about and relate. You can all relate to each other. See, that's another benefit of trucking. It brings families together.
Stay tuned for more of Women Road Warriors coming up.
Trucking Moves America Forward, or TMAF, is building a positive image of trucking by telling the story of the hardworking drivers and industry professionals who support the industry. And you can be a part of it. Learn more about TMAF and how you can join and be a part of the industry movement working to build a strong image of trucking by visiting TMAF's website at truckingmovesamerica.com. You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and our latest channel, TikTok.
Welcome back to Women Road Warriors with Shelley Johnson and Kathy Tuccaro.
So what do you find the hardest thing in the job itself? Because it's not all roses, right? We both know that.
No.
So
For
what
me,
do you
the hardest
find?
thing is the moods. Like, we all have things that go on in our personal life. So it's like sometimes the mood can be low at work. So just like trying to not let it affect you because you're there for 11 more hours is probably the hardest thing. And other than that, it's like you make it as enjoyable as kind of you want. Where I like to listen to music, so it's like you can crank your tunes, try and just like, you know, keep the positive vibe in your own truck. And but other than that, like I think it's great. The balance is good between like your work and your home life. You can work as much or as little as you want. We have lots of people that work extra overtime. Yeah,
It is good.
that would be the hardest thing for me is just I'm a mood person. So I'm like when the crew is crabby, it's hard for me to be like, okay, you came to work happy today. You don't have to be crabby.
Yeah, you gotta put yourself in a box, you know, where the energy is not contagious. It's like,
Sure.
okay, I'm just gonna reflect that off and not let it affect me because you don't know what people are going through. Or we have a lot of people that do live away as well, and they come and stay at the Valley on the 4 days that they're working. So, you know, they have travel on top of that. And yeah,
When I wrote
it's
my book, did Dave give you each a copy?
He did,
Yes,
yes. Thank
thank
you.
Okay,
you.
I have
good,
not had
good.
an opportunity to open it up yet and take a look, but I will
No, but
definitely in the new year.
We're talking about mental health. When I wrote the book, like I had a pretty rough life, and I wrote it for women and youth. And once the book was about to come out in 2017, about 3 days before the release, it hit me like a ton of bricks. Like, oh my God, everybody at work is gonna know, right?
Yeah.
And I couldn't sleep for 3 days because I'm thinking, oh my God, am I gonna get fired? Like, because only people knew that I was a nurse, but I'm generally happy, and whatever the superficial facade that people put out there, you don't know the real story. You don't know what's
That's
No.
going
right.
on.
And sometimes you like
So,
it that way where you're like,
well,
my personal is
yeah.
my personal, my work is my work.
But like in where I come from, what I'm doing it with my life, and I guess my personal mission is to help people through that. So when the book was about to come out, I was really like anxious over it. So what I did, until I realized, I'm like, wait a minute, don't tell me these big tough guys don't have life issues and problems, and either there's always suicide, and maybe there's suicide in the family, there's cancer, there's death, there's maybe they've been sexually assaulted as a kid that they don't tell anybody. So I went in front of my crew, and at the time there was 150, and I said, I put my book up on either screen, and I said, you see that book? It has nothing to do with mining, like nothing.
Yeah.
And I said, it's about overcoming depression and hardships and abuse and trauma and loneliness, but and it's also about courage. And I said, I want you to hear it from me and not from gossip out of the lunch shack. This happened, this happened, this happened. I'm not asking you to buy the book, or even read it. Personally, I'd rather you not read it. But if you know someone that's struggling, maybe pay it forward to them. And what that did, oh my God. So instead of talking about, oh, so what'd you do on days off, or what's steak night tonight, or talk about the weather, all that superficial crap, people are actually having conversations, real conversations about mental health in the workplace. And that is what the whole goal was, because now people are being real and they're human. So now I have people from all over site, different departments, coming to me and saying, hey, Kath, I got a couple daughters that are, in their teens, and they're really struggling. And I heard about your book, and, all this stuff. And
It's inspiring.
that changed everything for me. It really did.
Yeah.
And even our toughest, do you know Jean Drader?
I do. I've only met Gene once, but yes,
Okay,
Dave talks
like
about
a
Gene.
tough, yeah, they're good friends. He's the toughest,
Yeah, they work together here
for a long time, right? He's a
Yeah.
tough nugget, and he's actually quite intimidating. Kind of remind me of the Grinch a little bit, and a little afraid of the guy. And so he comes up to me one day. We're both at the lunch room hanging our coats up, and he's over, maybe 20 feet over, and he looks at me and he stops. He goes, "Hey!" And I'm like, oh God, he's talking to me.
It's like, uh-oh.
And I'm like, oh. I look over, I'm like, yes, Gene. And he says, your book. I'm like, uh-huh. He says, I want a copy. And I just about fell over. I'm like, huh? What? Like, real? I almost said, you read?
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay. I was so stunned because
Yeah.
now my target audience, he just didn't fit the image of what I had wrote the book for. And so that changed everything for me, because now I recognized that I'm reaching people that I
You had no idea.
had no
Yeah.
idea. Right.
Yeah.
And so that, and so, well, in order to protect his image, the next day when I brought him the book, I put it in a black garbage bag and I kind of slid it to him under the table. I said, I
Yeah.
don't want to wreck your image there, Gino. So
Yeah.
yeah.
It's so
So
true. I mean,
yeah,
it's
you
like
don't
the
know what people
struggle
are
is
going
real
through.
for so many people.
Oh
Sure.
my
Yeah.
gosh.
And I think even the last 2 years, 2.5 years with COVID, that was
Yeah.
also another big factor. It impacted a lot of people in a lot of different ways.
Huge
Mhm.
And
challenge. Yeah.
it has been a huge challenge. And and I think too, it's baby steps,
Mhm.
like when you're making change or making decisions in your life, it's not always to set the bar so high. Set it as one, like day by day and one
Yeah.
success at a time,
Yep.
instead of where everything needs to be at the end. And I think we always have choices. Like, even when I decided to go to the mine, and my husband was just like, I believe you can do this. He goes,
Mhm.
you're a good driver and you like to drive. He goes, you're probably going to love it. And he's like, give it a shot. But he's like, you know what? If it's not for you, then you make a change again. Like,
Yeah.
nobody says you have to stay with that
Mhm.
decision when you make it,
Yeah.
That's right.
And that goes with
it's
anybody for any career.
Yeah.
Right? Give it a
absolutely, or
shot.
anything
Yeah.
you do in life. Like, you just gotta, at the time, if you think it's right, then you do what you think is right. And in 6 months or a year later, if that doesn't feel right anymore, then you take
Make a
the leap
change.
and figure out how you're going to make that change.
But you
Mm.
never know
know
until you try. And it's funny how sometimes you'll see people at work and you almost have like this, they'll never make it like in this industry and they surprise you. So it's like you never know if you will like it. And maybe you will surprise yourself too on how much you like being a dirty coal miner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
it's been really good. I think for me the biggest challenge was definitely learning the radio. Like, that was extremely overwhelming. Like you said, being able to
Mhm.
hear what people were saying, I didn't even understand half their words.
Mhm.
And also night shifts, because I
Yeah.
don't sleep great during the day, but it's like you figure out a routine. I know I have to get up really early in the morning, and then
Yeah.
I have to stick to what I'm doing so I can, get a little bit of a nap in the afternoon. So it's just step
When
by
it comes to
step.
career choices and changes and planning, what are you going to do? I have always believed that if you don't design your own life, right, your own life plan,
Yeah,
chances are that you're going to fall into someone else's idea of what they
yeah.
want you to do, right?
that's
And what do
Very
they
right.
want you to
true.
do? Probably not much.
Yeah,
There's a
that's
lot
so
of
true.
jealousy, there's a lot of toxic people, there's narcissism, there's people that don't want to see you succeed.
Yeah.
So I know in my own personal life, I had to step away from a lot of people and just say, you know what, right now, this isn't about you. This is about what I want, what I need. And you have to set those boundaries. And
Yeah,
if
of
it
what's healthy.
requires, and even sometimes, even if it's family, like my own personal family was very toxic for quite a few years.
Yep.
And I just had to step away so I could heal, so that I could get clarification in who Kathy is and what Kathy's going to be doing with her life, and get more direction, not from their opinions, right?
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely. I mean, you got to lead your own healthy lifestyle, no matter what
mhm,
that is, what brings you some sort of joy, I guess. Like, you got to work a lot of years
you do.
as
And
well. So, I
change
mean,
is
it's
constant. It's still changing.
Yeah.
absolutely. So, and we change as individuals. So your needs and your wants change,
Mhm.
as you mature or you grow, as well as your life changes. So, I just think as long as you're willing to accept change and to learn new adventures, and I don't know, I would say you're never too old to learn new tricks.
There you go.
Hey, I'm learning
You
the
can
dozer at 53, right?
Hey, why
exactly,
not?
like, that's
Yeah.
awesome, Kathy. Great for
Yeah.
you. Like, yeah, we'll
Oh
all
my
have our
God, it's
struggles when we're
terrifying.
learning something new. Yeah. Absolutely.
I
It will be
did something so
terrifying.
stupid the other day that I was Dave was always kind of yelling at inside the truck, like, Kathy, take your foot off the decelerator, right? Because I'm always because these things are big. And so what I was climbing up over a berm, and I was putting the brakes, I guess, and I decided, wait a minute, I'll take my foot off. Well, when I went over the berm, I should have put the brakes, and I didn't, and I crashed down hard. And I get out of and right in front of Dave's truck, right? And technically the mine trainer. I'm thinking, okay, that's a big no-no. So I get out and I go look at the front of the blade, just like, did I wreck it? Because I crashed hard. And then I get in the truck and there's Dave laughing so hard. He's actually crying. Okay. I've known him for 8 years. I've never seen him laugh so hard. And I'm trying to get ask him about it when we hang up. And I'm trying to catch his breath and he's laughing and laughing. And he's like, oh my God, that's the funniest thing I've ever seen. He said, your hair was everything. It looked like you were in a circus. And then he says, to top it off, you go check to see if the dozer's okay.
Yeah.
That's
And then he
great.
stopped and said, oh, by the way, are you okay? Well,
Yeah.
okay, yeah. You asked
Oh,
him about
yeah.
it. He'll tell you.
Sometimes you really truly do just rattle yourself. Like, I know we've launched off a couple jumps and it was like, oh my God, like, where did that pothole come from? Like,
Sure.
yeah,
Uh,
it's crazy.
Stay tuned for more of Women Road Warriors coming up.
Kathy DeCaro is nothing short of amazing. She not only drives the world's biggest truck as a heavy equipment operator in northern Alberta, Canada. She's an international motivational speaker and the author of Dream Big, an autobiography about overcoming a lifetime of trauma and abuse that led to dreams of success. Kathy inspires people the world over to change their lives and improve their self-worth. Her book will change your life. She's passionate about personal growth and believes anyone can change their circumstances and overcome their obstacles if they believe in themselves. Her life will amaze you and seriously inspire you. Be sure to order a copy of her book, Dream Big, on Amazon.com. Industry movement Trucking Moves America Forward is telling the story of the industry, our safety champions, the women of trucking, independent contractors, the next generation of truckers, and more. Help us promote the best of our industry. Share your story and what you love about trucking. Share images of a moment you're proud of. And join us on social media. Learn more at truckingmovesamerica.com.
Welcome back to Women Road Warriors with Shelley Johnson and Kathy DeCaro.
It sounds like it's an exciting job. It's challenging, but maybe in anything, if a woman wants to try a whole new career, it's just a matter of keeping an open mind and giving yourself a break and just doing, like
giving
you said,
yourself a
baby
chance.
steps. Yeah.
Giving
Yeah,
yourself, believing in yourself
absolutely.
is the bottom line. Believing you
Yeah.
can do it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So now
put
that
your
I'm training
mind
on
to it.
dozer, I honestly know with every cell in my being that I can do anything I want
There
in
you
any
go.
right.
aspect of my life, having run that thing. So I
Yeah.
didn't say I ran it
Excellent.
well, but
Right.
I
But
did.
I mean, it's like anything. Over time, it gets
Yeah.
better and it gets easier, and you get
Sure.
things become more natural. It just becomes part of the instinct when you get in
Yeah.
that piece of equipment. You don't really have to think so much anymore.
Right?
When you're just learning, you're thinking about every little detail that sometimes you miss something. You're like, oh yeah, shoot, I forgot about that, because you're focused so hard on something else.
Well, and for you guys too, like you're off for 14 days. So it's you probably feel
Mhm.
like you just get good at the end of your set. And then you have 2 weeks off, and then your first day back, you're like, oh man, I was doing so good at the end of my last set.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I've done 10 days now on the dozer, and now I'm heading back next week. And it's going to be 2 weeks of sheer darkness because there's no sunlight up there at this time, right? So learning that those
Oh.
are in the dark on top of your topping piles, and there's crevices, and it's like a canyon down there. I'm like, holy crap, if I topple over, right?
Yeah.
And you can't
Yeah.
see anything, and you're unsure of the machine. It's new. It's it's a
It's
little
intimidating for
Sure.
sure. You know, but it's like you say, the determination and,
Yep.
you know, just, you know, having the courage to talk yourself through.
Yeah.
I
You know, like,
recommend
I
it
can
to
do
every
this.
woman that I meet. You know, I said it's men's best kept secret. Don't let
Uh-huh.
them tell you otherwise, and give it a shot. Just try it.
Yeah. And we have
Excellent.
a great crew too. Like our crew, they're, you know, I find they're super encouraging.
Mhm.
You know, like they'll tell you things to help you out a little bit. You know, even if you're going into the shovel when you very first start and you're thinking, well, maybe I should, you know, go in counterclockwise instead of counterclockwise, and you
Yeah.
do it. And then they'll kind of tell you, you know, follow the cable, do it this way, or, you know,
Mhm.
it's,
Yeah.
you know
Our
what?
crew reminds me of the Breakfast Club. Like I always refer it to as that, where it's like I feel like it works so well because we're all so different. Like we have
Sure.
young females. We even have, you know, a couple like older females on our crew. We have a couple of one of the guys he's been on our crew for 28 years.
Yeah.
And so, you know, we have some very experienced with some not very experienced, and it's all
Legends.
over
Yeah.
so it's perfect because it's not all, you know, young or not all old vets who are like,
Yeah.
it's a good balance. So
I'm
it
sure
Which
works.
they're
is cool.
chomping at the bit some days at some of us newbies.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Even some of the older guys too. Like
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
think, you know, at the
Yeah.
beginning, I feel like you want to impress so much, but after you've been doing it for maybe 10 years, some people get a little discouraged and they're like, whatever, I don't even care anymore. But it's a great balance, our crew for sure.
That's terrific.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's exciting. Yeah.
Thank you so much for being on the show. We actually are out of time here, but this has been fun, Claire and Caitlin. I really appreciate you sharing your experiences.
Yeah,
Oh,
this has been great.
It's been
Thank
great.
you.
Thank you guys for having us.
Yeah. Thank you so much. It's been a blast.
Yeah, I think hopefully
many
you've
good
inspired
laughs.
some ladies to do this. This would be great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyone out there that, you know, is second guessing their on anything that they want to do, no matter what the
Mhm.
industry is, it's
Yeah.
take the leap. Just do it. Put
Yeah.
your big girl panties on and just yeah,
Yeah.
just suck it up and give it a shot. And you'll
Suck it up and just
sometimes
do it.
surprise
I like
yourself.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
great.
It's
Thank
a
you.
great thing.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much.
You've been listening to Women Road Warriors with Shelley Johnson and Kathy Tuccaro. If you want to be a guest on the show or have a topic or feedback, email us at info@tncradio.live.
Thank you for listening to another great interview on tncradio.live. And don't forget, be sure to subscribe to our podcast of Women Road Warriors. It's free. All of the material you hear on tncradio.live on our website, our broadcasts, or our podcasts are copyrighted. There can be no distribution without the express consent of tncradio.live and its partners. For inquiries, write us at info@tncradio.live.